Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, and evening to everyone joining us from around the world. Whether you're just tuning up now for your morning coffee or about to settle down for the night, a warm welcome to you all. So, my name is Adeel Irshad. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for EV Technology, Sue International Investment Group, based in Muscat, Oman. I'll be your moderator for today's electrifying session. And when I say electrifying, I don't just mean the topic, though we're about to have some powerful insights from EV technology, developments, and customer adoption. I hope you're all charged up because today's first session is packed with enough energy to rival the range anxiety. Now, speaking of power, let me introduce you to today's high voltage panel of experts. Abdellah Cherkaoui, Senior Advisor at AquaLith, USA and France, a man on a mission to eliminate the range anxiety because nobody likes living life in the fear of running out of juice. Then we have Fizza Rizvi, CPO Manager at Electromin, who's leading the charge in KSA's electrification efforts. We have Rodrigo Rojas, Business Developer with VEGA for Latin America and East Europe from Spain, making sure we charge our EVs without having to pray for a last miracle for 5%. Then we have Ahmad Al-Ansari. Mr. Ahmad Al-Ansari is the AEMOB Committee Executive, steering the GCC toward their ambitious electrification target, making sure we're not just dreaming of electric cars, but actually someone driving them sooner in the different fields. So, all right, let's get the conversation rolling. We'll start up with some rapid fire perspective from each panelist. And let's kick off with Fizza. Fizza, we have heard so much about Saudi Arabia's grand vision for the future. What's the current state of EV charging infrastructure in the kingdom? Fizza, to you.
Hi, Adeel. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be joining the panel. Thank you very much for having me on. So Saudi Arabia is making significant strides in enhancing the EV charging infrastructure across the country. There are just under about 1,000 electric vehicles and 1,000 chargers across the country. So it's still very much in the embryonic stage of development. I work for a company called Electromin. It's the largest, it's the company that's supplying the largest EV charging network across Saudi Arabia. We see hundreds of charging sessions a month on average. So it's still low utility, but the infrastructure is growing heavily. There are advancements across the nation with multiple organizations all hooked into reaching the Vision 2030 goal of having 5,000 fast chargers by 2030. And by doing so, we're making the EV charging infrastructure a lot more accessible and easy for drivers to use. That's where it's at.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fizza, for letting us know. Now we will ask Rodrigo Rojas, all the way from Spain. Europe is charging ahead, Rodrigo, literally and figuratively. When it comes to EV infrastructure, can you give us a peek into the latest developments there with you in Europe? Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. As you said, we are VEGA Chargers. We are a Spanish company that develop and manufacture DC chargers for the market right now. We are seeing, as you said, a lot of development in a technical and also political way here in Europe. We're developing laws that are helping the growth of the technology. Right now, we're seeing a lot of inputs in the European Parliament that make new regulations for people to get more EV chargers in the road, in different kind of roads here in Europe as a regulation. So right now we are following that path of giving to the market that power that needs to supply on that regulation. So we are developing chargers from 30 kilowatts that are more for the opportunity chargers, but also right now we are introducing 240 kilowatts as a standalone and also 720 HPC high power chargers for also a lot of different ways of charging for CPO. So we're in that path right now. We are very happy of what is happening here right now and happy also to let people know more about this to the rest of other countries also.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Now I would like to hear from Abdellah, since he is deep in the trenches of battery innovation. What's the buzz around, Abdellah, in battery technology, and how do you see it changing the audience consumer approach to charging?
Thank you, Adeel, and thank you, Mr. Ansari, for the opportunity to be here. I've been involved with the electrification of transport for the past 15 years. So I was one of the founding members of ChargePoint, the largest EV charging that defined connected EV charging, and then with Volta charging, with what the visibility to drive customer adoption. And it's fantastic to see how much we have moved forward and drove forward, but we're still in this gap where how do we transition from we know where gasoline fueling is, we see it as customers, as end drivers, and with all the use cases, we still don't see it with electric vehicle charging. And so you mentioned laws, you mentioned all of that. It's very interesting to watch and to see that these laws are helping. They definitely are. Because the visibility of the electric vehicle charging speaks to the new customers. We want to see more EV charging, and that's, you know, where it comes from.
Thank you so much, Abdellah. And finally, I would like to hear from Mr. Ahmad Al-Ansari. Mr. Ahmad, we have heard a lot about EVs in the cities. But what about EVs in construction sites? What's the role of EVs in industries beyond transportation? What's your take on it, Mr. Ahmad Al-Ansari?
Thank you very much, Adeel. Considering the noise and pollution generated from construction sites, we have always been concerned on how to bring better measures to control those two phenomena, which are very annoying to the public and the community. One of the major things we've been looking at is how to reduce construction noise basically generated from the use of heavy equipment on construction sites. As you know, the diesel engine-powered vehicles do generate lots of noise regardless of the operation of those equipment, the noise of the engines, and also the emissions generated by those engines. So I think it's the time now that we take some serious actions by bringing potential use of EV equipment with charged batteries to basically perform those functions and tasks. And beside that, we are also looking into how the public can better adopt the use of EV generally, whether it's in construction or other applications as well. And being a member of the executive committee for the planning of implementation of use of EVs in Qatar, I take those two issues very seriously, to be honest, in cooperation with my colleague and partners within the different government agencies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmad. Now, I'm going to head to the focal questions of this webinar. So my first question is about global strategies for boosting EV adoption. I could say this question is for Abdellah and Fizza. So if battery innovation and charging infrastructure are constantly evolving, we all know that. So what global strategies have been most successful in boosting EV adoption, and how do we apply those to different regions? And just feel free to please give me shocking surprises.
Fizzy, would you like to go first?
No, floor's yours. Go for it.
I would say Fizza first because she's the girl. I don't mind.
So we talked a lot about experience on the ground. There are three pieces to EV charging. We're fundamentally changing how we fuel, how we move. We are changing that in a fundamental way. And therefore, one of the first pieces in terms of strategy, visibility. The second piece, it's been talked a lot about, reliability. The number three piece, network planning, how people move. A car is parked statistically 23 hours of the day. Mr. Al-Ansari actually spoke about the commercial pieces. There are so many use cases of so many vehicles, transportation of goods, people, and everything in between, all around. And now we have to fuel it differently. And it's very difficult if there is no visibility. I go back to point number one, the visibility of the charging infrastructure. So laws, regulations that say, let's put EV charging in gasoline station, that's a good thing. We want that. Why? It shows but we actually, electric vehicles are so much nicer to fuel because we don't have to go somewhere. We don't have to go to the gasoline station because I can go to the mall. I can go to at home. I can go to my work. That's where my car is parked. And that's where it's plugged. And all of that benefits everything around the connection that we're bringing together between energy and transport. Network planning. We have tools today. We have artificial intelligence. We have machine learning. For 7 years, I contributed to work with Volta charging. And we defined commercial-centric way of doing things that benefit all businesses, all the government, all around that EV charging infrastructure. We did our IPO in August 2021, and then it was, by the way, sold to Shell Recharge.
Okay.
It was a bit bittersweet, but that was an acquisition that happened. The point was, how do you plan for where people fuel? And I'm going to end up with this very important point. Where we fuel is where we move and how we go. And if we think about this as a whole, as a government, holistically, we win. We win. You're
Sorry,
muted.
I believe you're on mute.
You're muted, Adeel.
I quite agree with this, and I think I believe in your theory about is you charge where you park. Yeah. And now we hear from Fizza, please.
Yeah, so you mentioned you spoke of a question to understand the global strategies that have been used to boost EV adoption across the world. And I think the best market to learn from for every country is through China. It's the largest market worldwide with the most number of EVs, with the most number of charging points. They have over 5 million public and private charging points across the nation, across the country. And very early on, I believe it was in 2008 or 2009, where they introduced subsidies to lower the overall cost for purchasing an EV. There was a huge investment in their charging infrastructure. They have the largest charging station in Wuhan with, I think, 300 DC chargers, which half of them, I believe, are solar powered as well. So they've got a lot of innovation and development around understanding how to enhance their charging infrastructure. And the investment behind that has really filled passengers and drivers with a lot of confidence and eliminating their range anxiety in taking on their journeys. Alongside that, I believe a lot of countries have also introduced bans for the sales of ICE vehicles. So any combustion engine vehicles, for example, in the EU, after 2035 will not be allowed. So it's already encouraging the purchase of EVs. So a few government initiatives put in place, and a lot of passengers and a lot of drivers are encouraged to, first of all, educate themselves on why there's a benefit to having an EV, and how that will also make their life easier with if they're planning on staying in the locations that they're in.
Thank you, Fizza. Fascinating. And I must say that the half of the charges, I think 85% of the charges in the world right now are from China or are in China. This is the last info that I had. Anyways, so going back to this, coming to another question, the impact of emerging EV technologies. Yeah, solid state batteries are the next big thing. Fast charging, longer range. So let's be real. So who wouldn't want a battery that charges faster than your morning espresso? Fizza, Abdellah, and Rodrigo, three of you, I would ask this question. How will emerging EV technologies impact adoption rates and the infrastructure we need to support them? Let's start with Fizza first, this time.
So there are three ways of three factors I believe that contribute to convincing drivers of the greatness of having EVs. So there's one, incentives, whether that's tax exemptions or credits that can be that are given to passengers, and that reduces the overall cost for your for purchasing the EV. There's then your non-financial incentives, so like the low emission zones across Paris and London. So EVs have unrestricted access to very busy parts of the city. And then they're also allowed to park in like metered zones. So I think that's also a big driving force to why people are encouraged. And then third, education. There are a number of campaigns that I've seen governments running, even companies running, alongside that, going into schools where you're educating the youth. So from 16 years old and above, where they're about to take their driving tests and whatnot, really encouraging and driving the understanding of the benefits and the advantages to having an EV. So those three areas are where I've seen policies and incentives that the government creates to really encourage passengers that EVs are just great.
Yes, education awareness plays a great role, Fizza. I second you on that. Let's hear from Abdellah and Rodrigo.
Well, I'm going to make a little bit of a counterpoint. And I apologize, Fizza, for this. Because if we cannot make a business out EV charging, how can that function? Okay, we want government subsidies because we want to prime the pump. Now let's look at, you talked about China. It's going full force. Great. They're past the early majority. They're near the 50%. I mean, they're, like you said, here is a number that blew my mind. T-Charge just had delivered in 2022, I believe, more energy than the whole of Amazon AWS uses in energy globally, or Apple. As we're talking about energy and transportation coming together, we're delivering energy. This is absolutely mind-blowing what we can do with how we move and how we do energy, and actually how it goes back to in terms of ancillary services and all of that. And this is where I go, well, if there is not a business behind EV charging, I figure there is a problem. We can prime the pump, and I agree. We should, I talked about visibility, and yes. So the rules that the government put forward to say, let's show everyone that there is EV charging, that it's available, that you can drive, all along Doha, along Qatar, along Morocco, along California. You can do that. I've done this so many times, 10 hours from Stuttgart all the way to Barcelona or more. And today it works. And it was thanks to those rules. But for CPOs to actually have a business, there needs to be a business there.
Yeah.
There needs to be a business around electric vehicle charging. It can't be just about the subsidies.
True. I agree. Also, yeah, because it makes sense. If you do not have business model through charging solutions, I don't think people would like to go into that kind of business. I agree with you on that. Rodrigo?
Yeah, nice topic for debate. I believe that there's a lot of legs on the table. We said here. First of all, we need the clients. To have a business, we need clients. If we need clients, we need cars. The cars are the clients. So for us, we know that the clients are changing very fast. To respond to your question of solid batteries, that are the new customer that is coming. The technologies are growing very fast. So right now we are developing chargers that are bigger than the market needs. We're developing a charger that can charge 480 kilowatts for a light commercial vehicle that right now doesn't exist. But we believe that in the future we will have that kind of technology. I agree a little bit with Abdellah and a little with Fizza, because I believe that every point of view is good right now. Is in a good mood right now, because it's important to have different point of views, because the business models are changing. We know about the grid. We never talk about the grid in the panels, but the grid is a thing. We need the power to supply to all these chargers, but we don't talk also about the different way of getting energy from the world. We have conventional energy. We have solar that is in a very cool way right now to talk about it, renewables. But we're not talking about the curtailment of the energy, that we have energy of the solar panel that is not developing to the grid. So new business models are opening it. These new second life batteries that can supply energy for these chargers. So I believe that CPOs are playing a good role right now, because they are making new business model to pay for these projects. If they try to charge cars the old way, energy from the grid with a big charger, and cars that have batteries, I believe probably they will not have enough energy. So if they don't have the chargers in the place, there will not be enough cars in the highway, in places that they want to have cars. So I believe that is a blend of things. Good policies, also good news. Is good to inform people that in Norway, 96% of the last month sales are electric vehicles. So there are countries that are moving in electric vehicles. That is a reality. We are having good news of petrol companies that believe in the EV transition. We know that EV transition needs the petrol companies, the electrical companies. We need everybody to change the way of developing the market. So there's not good companies and bad companies. There are a lot of companies that need to get ahead and developing business models that can supply more cars in the market. We know here, we read a lot of news that companies here in the European market, in the North American market, that developing cars are struggle with the sales of EVs because they don't have enough EV chargers in the highways. But we believe that good incentives, good technology, and new business models that can have a 360 view can help probably new customers to change the IC cars to EV cars. We as a technology company that develop DC chargers are developing technologies that are more ahead than the necessities of the market, because we believe and we understand that we will need more power for these new cars that are gonna be probably in the next 2, maybe 3 years. 10 years ago, we talked about 10 years. Right now, we're talking about 2 to 3 years. So we have to step up and understand that the big competitors as Europe, China, and North America are pushing the market. And they want to have electric vehicles because they also have policies in the governments that need to have better environment. We're in a big problem right now with the health issues, and also in the environmental issues, and they also are looking at that. So it's a complex conversation. It's good to have debate about this, because when you listen people like Abdellah, like Fizza, and also you see different inputs that help me as a developer to have decisions in the next develop of my chargers. So we are probably, these debates are one of the best things. Fizza talk about education. I just want to make a quick check on that. I believe education in the early stage of the kids is very important. I have 3 kids. I I talk every day about this. My kids don't talk about gasoline. They talk about charging the cars. They saw electric cars every day in the street. They saw his parent driving electric cars, talking about solar panels. So it's our role model, not also in the market, also in the new stage of the youth to talk about this. So I'm really into that. I'm a convinced professional, and we also convinced here in VEGA that we have to do things different to go away to do the next step. We don't have to go to the traditional business models. We are in the default way of doing business right now, and we are into that 100%.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rodrigo. And I'm happy to hear your thoughts. And just to add, I'm also very pro towards role modeling, education awareness, youth empowerment, women empowerment. So we can grow this industry as a vision towards net zero to 2050. In fact, in all my conferences and events, I'm talking about this as specifically. Having said that, let's move on to our third question, which is about accelerating EV adoption in the GCC. My question would be with Fizza and Ahmad, because they both are in the GCC. You guys know that we love cars with engines that roar so loud that they can wake you up and they can wake you up or the whole neighborhood with a loud noise. So how can we convince people that EVs, when even without no noise, can make some noise? Yeah. So what are the policies, incentives, and what could be the game plan, Fizza and Ahmad?
You want to start, Fizza, or?
No, you go for it, Mr. Ansari.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, you know that almost all GCC countries have come up with their own master plans towards the use of EVs on public roads, whether it's the personal use or public transportations. As you may know now, if I may speak at the level of Qatar, for instance, that we are electrifying the railway systems now. The metro is fully operated by the use of electricity. But obviously, most of the locomotives that we are currently using are not necessarily battery powered. You know, they are using live charging basically through electrification systems. One of the good things would be is to consider, installations of lithium batteries to those, trains, rather than continuously powering them through live electrification. Now, when it comes to buses, for instance, we do have a plan here. Hopefully, by 2030, almost all public bus on the road going to be battery charged. So by doing so, we definitely going to achieve, net zero carbon emission, at least on public roads. Now, it is very important to consider education. Education and public awareness is something very important. As many of us may know that, especially when it comes to youngsters, they are still into the traditional kind of four-wheelers. They want to enjoy, have fun, go, outdoors in the, deserts, for instance. Okay, and they think that the traditional internal combustion engines may produce more power than battery charged engines or than EVs. To get that sufficient power and torque, basically, to enjoy the way they drive their vehicles. But nonetheless, I think the public awareness is becoming something very important now. It's building up. The education is building up. I think there are much more understanding has already been put in place, towards the good use of the EV, the sort of benefits we're going to get from that. Media plays an important role in that. Social media also plays an important role in that, and spreading the public awareness of the beneficial that we're going to get by using the EVs rather than the classical internal combustion engine vehicles. Now, again, we need the political will. This is something very important. If the political will there, it's going to be much more easier for us to push for the use of the EVs. And not to forget that we are committed and abide by many international treaties now when it comes to the climate change and the protecting the environment, as you may know, emission control, the carbon footprint. All these things also pressurizing the local governments within the GCC to also go green and adopt the standard greenhouse gas emission policies. So this is something very important that we rely on in order to achieve better implementation and application use of EVs on our roads. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to hear from Fizza now.
Sure. So, Mr. Ansari, I completely agree with you on the education for it. I feel all four of us, all five of us, have the same view of how important and how valuable it is for the next generation to see the importance of going green and building on the infrastructure around EV usage. Alongside that, I believe the biggest paranoia when we speak to any customer, when I've spoken to customers in the UK as well as in Saudi Arabia, has been the nervousness around range anxiety, and to eliminate that, to try and build the confidence in passengers, in drivers, is to build on charging infrastructure. So the investment and the attention on this is strongly required across the Gulf, and I believe it's doing very well in Qatar, in the UAE. It's almost, you see Teslas all over the place. In Saudi Arabia, I've seen a few Teslas, a few Lucid vehicles, very impressive looking vehicles. But it's with the advancements towards adopting EVs, the infrastructure behind it needs to be sustainable, it needs to be durable and reliable. And I feel that that's where a lot of companies like Total Energies or Al-Futtaim or EVIQ or Electromin, all of those companies are players in that game of building the confidence in customers. Alongside that, I believe local manufacturing has played a big part in the customer's confidence. So for example, Saudi Arabia's first homegrown electric vehicle is being manufactured at the moment under the brand named Seer, and that vehicle is expected to be launched next year sometime. They're launching SUVs alongside sedans, and that hopefully will also build the attraction for passengers and customers and drivers to see their 4x4s with high torque, and they're able to still get a very high-tech, advanced vehicle out of an EV. And I believe there's also the financial incentive of having it being manufactured locally. It means the vehicles can be transported much quicker, they'll be delivered much quicker, and they're just cheaper generally because they're being made in the country. And then lastly, of course, your government incentives around tax exemptions and the emission zones, that is something you can develop later on. But for now, I believe a lot of work around having no tariffs, for example, is one big reason why a lot of customers in the UK were able to start purchasing EVs, because they could charge for free all over the country. Of course, now that's being phased out, and a lot of DC charging is not available for free anymore. But in Saudi Arabia, like you mentioned, in Oman as well, there's no tariff at the moment, and it's a very good time to make use of that. Once it's introduced, the financial incentives around that are reduced. So yeah, with those 3 points, I'd see consumer preferences changing towards EVs, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Fizza. I completely agree. And also, just to add here, Oman tops in terms of EV regulations, by the way, in the region. We have zero VAT and customs on electric vehicles, zero also on spare parts, zero for car registration for electric vehicles with the police, and also 79% is electric by 2035 already. So the vision is very clear, and then Vision 2050, of course, we have to be completed. So we are also on a very good path in terms of electrification. And now moving to my next question, and this is a very good question. I mean, it's very close to me. Changing consumer preferences towards EV. Ahmad, Fizza, and Rodrigo, how do we change people's mind? I mean, instant torque sounds perfectly cool or pretty cool. But what else can we do to convince consumers that, yes, EVs are not just eco-friendly, they're also kind of awesome to use. So what do you guys think? Ahmad, Fizza, and Rodrigo.
Okay, thank you. Well, look, Abdullah has mentioned something very important earlier. I don't have to go to necessarily the gas station in order to get my car charged. I can do it anywhere at my home, public parking, for instance, the mall or wherever. Okay, so that's in itself a very good attracting point. All right, and on the other hand, we need to demonstrate the differences or the pros and cons and the advantages or disadvantages, we say, when it comes to the use of traditional vehicles or the EVs. Okay, so this is a main focal thing into the whole thing when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to operation costs, for instance. Okay, the initial investment could be a little bit higher than traditional cars, but also you're talking about the shelf life of the batteries, 7 years maybe, which can be extended hopefully in the future. All right, and currently most of the EV suppliers as well, and manufacturing suppliers, give extended warranties. They give 5 years, they give 6 years even. All right, that's something really gonna create that kind of let me say friendly and attractive environment for the local consumers to consider when it comes to looking into their pockets and how much you're going to spend, okay, while they are on the road, for instance, traveling, you name it. Okay, that's and the whole perception about use of transportation, especially when it comes to normal cars, is changing now. People are very much realizing, how much they're going to gain and benefit from use of EV. So it's really to us to basically build that kind of, let me say, as I said earlier, the appreciation of and even when it comes to safety, this is also something very important when it comes to pollution. As I said earlier, all those elements have to be highlighted properly and build the public knowledge about the benefits that everybody going to gain and get from the use of the EVs.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmad. Fizza?
Yeah, so there are quite a few.
One side, before you talk, I would just like to add something for you.
Sure.
Knowing your background, how can we focus to change consumer preference towards EV, not only global, also regional? So just to keep in mind, so answer for both, please.
Yeah, sure. So I think that there is a strong desire in me to have the education aspect focused on not just within governments or initiatives that change, but I believe there needs to be a strong push in education, and whether that comes through marketing, whether that comes through speaking to the youth, whether that comes through branding. There needs to be a strong push on education of people, of the coolness around why an EV should be utilized, should be purchased. So for example, there are EVs that are extremely high tech. You become part of that very tech savvy group when I've seen a lot of people that have got Teslas and they can do the autonomous parking, and like that when that feature got released, it was like, wow, that's the first high tech movement that we've seen of a car. And I believe a lot of EVs have very tech savvy features. Alongside that, a lot of people prefer quieter rides, so they don't prefer the full rev. So I can imagine that would come in very handy for families that have young children as well. So that's another reason why EVs would be attractive, alongside the aesthetics as well. EVs look so sleek and very clean. They've got I find them very beautifully designed. A few lucid vehicles that I've seen here are brilliant. They look much more attractive and much more appealing than your generic fast car that you would see driving around as a combustion engine. And then on top of that, it's an addition to Mr. Ansari's point of just charging where you park, having the accessibility of charging literally wherever you park. So whether it's malls, whether it's your groceries, your own home, charging is becoming a lot more accessible, and raising awareness of that and filling people with confidence in that aspect, I believe would really help enhance the preferences towards purchasing EVs.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fizza. Let's move on to Rodrigo. Let's hear from him, what he has got from all the way from Europe and Spain.
Well, right now there's a lot of opportunities of what we are doing not well in the past, that we are learning things to increase the amount of cars in the highways. You know, for us it's important to learn about what we already done or also other countries done. And I want to say something very technical probably, but it's very interesting about how the user connect with all these chargers in the supermarket as an opportunity charging, or in a hospital, in a cinema, or also in a highway when you want to charge very fast. And one thing that is quite annoying for the users right now is the thing about the interface between the apps and the chargers. We saw an opportunity there of legislation, of an open more, that the regulation supplies also a card payment method that is very good for the user. Right now, when we know people who are driving EVs, the car is good, the autonomy is going well every day a little bit, but right now I have problem with my app. So we know that any thing that these users talk in a bad way for the public that don't have an EV will say, okay, the car is good, the infrastructure is good, but they use an app and it's probably not good. So right now I'm going to wait, because the users that are the ones that know the technology are telling me something that is not good. They are saying that the technology is 100% okay. We know as users that we're going to step with only the small amount of wrong or bad information. That's the reality. We're human beings, and when we say I have a beautiful white shirt and I have a speed on my shirt, everyone wants to see my speed on my shirt. So it's the same thing in EVs. I drive one. I have also an EV bike because I live in Barcelona. I use the public transport. I use a train. And also a good thing about that are about that the mobility way is different right now with EVs. Are going to change also the way we move. But to finish about the point of the way of connect with the chargers, it's a good thing that regulation let users more way of connecting with the chargers. Because when you have a credit card, for example, here in Europe, I am living in Spain, I want to go to France. If I go to France and the European Union, I can go with no problem. I can cross about the border, I go to France, but I get to the next station, and if the charger don't have roaming connected with my apps, I would not be able to charge on that station. But if we have a credit card method, we can charge anyway, if we have that more regular way of payments. So right now, I believe that learning about the bad things that we're doing in the past, not the bad things, the beginning of the market, that we believe that was a good thing about the app. Right now, we're having roaming to connect all the apps, but we also see an opportunity of getting in the boat more people buying EVs, is to let them pay with a credit card. But also in other countries, for example, I saw the American market, and there's a lot of countries that pay with money, with cash. So where do you put a cash, for example, coins or bills in a charger? It's not possible. So companies are developing these totems that we could put everything in one place, and you can use all the chargers and pay with cash in one place. It's a very simple solution to let people to say, okay, if you have electric cars, you can pay anyway. You don't need a special app. You don't want to put your information anywhere because you're not too good with information, because we know people right now are not willing to give the information to an app. These are stoppers for people to get to the next step of changing the IC to an EV car. So as developers are looking for all these inputs of the market and trying to supply that solution to our chargers. And also, let me get again a little spin. I wanna say to Ahmad a good thing about electrifying the trains. Here in Spain, we have two projects, one in Madrid and also in Barcelona. This is about new business models. They're using the regen brakes of the trains to supply energy to batteries, to local chargers that are next to the station. So right now, we have to use our brain. We have to be we have to use a lot of creativity to develop these new products to the market, because energy is everywhere and we need to supply to the market. So we don't have to think or wait to the government to put a line. We can get the energy anywhere. So I believe that also that type of business are going in a good path for the EV consumer that want to see more chargers because they want to go to visit the family in summer and they use the car 95% of the time in a city, don't drive more than 100 kilometers per day. So they have all the kilometers to go with the battery, but they don't buy it because they want to travel to the country of the city of the father in the summer. So they need to see more chargers. So having chargers in the petrol station, having chargers in restaurants in the middle of the highway. So as I said at the beginning, the business model are changing. Everyone can sell energy. Everyone can change the way of driving. Right now, we don't see, I'm going to stop in all these petrol stations to go to see my father in summer. I will stop in the supermarket. I will stop in a restaurant. I will stop in a park because there is a park in the middle of the city. I have 20 chargers, so I will spend some time with my family, having a picnic, 25, 30 minutes. And after that, I have a rest and go to my parents' house. So the way of moving is changing. We know that partners, mainly CPOs, I've seen this because right now the CPOs are growing in a good way because they're seeing opportunities in all these places, supermarket, petrol station, parks, open public spaces. So I believe with that input probably would be a good next step for introducing more chargers to the market.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Good points. I have spoken about this for app to have a roaming facility, and we have worked on it also. And I also believe sometimes that we need to work on cash for people. Sometimes they cannot pay through credit card or debit cards. So yes, we need to work on the apps, roamings, and also updating the software in the car has to be through the air. Sometimes you're also passing in the region from, let's say you said Barcelona, sometimes you're going to Paris, or somebody from Paris is coming or driving when Ahmad said he drove from Germany to Paris. Either or. So updates are also there, which is going to be a bigger concern. And then also you will have problems in charging sometime if you don't have a roaming app. Having said that, we'll continue the question again regarding the GCC climate, hot climate. So adopting EVs for the GCC hot climate. We all know that the GCC region is a lot hot in the peak summer. You can probably fry an egg if you keep it on the hood of your vehicle in the peak summer. So my question would be to Ahmad, Abdellah, and Fizza, that how are EVs being adopted to survive these extreme temperatures? And how are manufacturers addressing this globally or probably regionally? So over to you guys.
Well, to be honest, I'm not an expert in, especially batteries or, but surely within the GCC, we have our own specification. Okay. Every single vehicle exported Qatar has to bear the GCC specification certification.
GSO certification.
Which we have developed basically based on our harsh environment, whether it's the batteries, even the interiors of the vehicles for the engines, the tires, and you name it. Otherwise, our vehicles won't last that long on the road, to be honest. Okay.
Yeah.
And when it comes to EV chargers, I'm sure they come up with certain specification that would stand the fluctuations of the temperatures even within a daytime in the summer. It can sometimes go to 10 degrees or 15 degrees, for instance. Okay, this is also something very important. And as you know, when it comes to Ingersoll protections, for instance, we have our own specifications towards that. Sometimes you go up to IP65, for instance, in some equipment, which is very much required in this
65, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the way we would normally tackle it, and we need to have the guarantees from the suppliers that whatever they supply to our market can really last for for long. And this may encourage us to have our own probably production facilities within the GCC to comply with our specs and regulations.
Thank you so much. I agree. Thank you so much. Abdullah and Fizza.
So this is very interesting. I have worked for 40 years in EV charging and for the past year and a half on the batteries, the energy storage, lithium-ion batteries, and everything that goes in. Governments need the trust that we can manufacture these batteries at scale for a long time. To Mr. Al-Ansari point, we want to know, and today, by the way, the batteries on an EV are guaranteed for 8 years. They actually have a shelf life of 12 years, by the way. And I mean, they're backed by, and whether it's BMW or Ford or GM or Lucid or Rivian, look, that battery is backed by an 8-year warranty.
Yeah.
But here is the biggest point. Here is the biggest point. The biggest point that is really everyone wants to know who's going to be the big winner in terms of the next electrochemistry for the batteries that are going to give us, hey, I want to, I can take a Toyota car in the dunes and have all the power I want. The fact is, with an EV, I have that power and more, but it really drains the juice quite fast when we do the same thing. So it's not similar. It's just we're changing the way we use power and energy. Two things, right? Energy, how much? How far can I go? Power, how fast can I go? But the electrochemistry is something fantastic. It's not about the point of is it solid state or lithium metal, or it's really how do we transition to an energy and transport economy globally. And this is what's at stake today. This is what's playing out. We produce energy, we feed it into the grid, and we, EV chargers, distribute it to batteries. So all this value chain has to fit somewhere, and it's about how can we scale all those up. China has shown us that they scaled it up quickly, powerfully. But at AquaLith, we develop a silicon anode that's 100%, that's made with commercial grade metallurgical silicon. That's produced. It's 7 times more capacity. It's twice less the cost of a graphite anode that goes in the vehicle. Now, what goes in the vehicle is the weight and the volume of that energy and power that we put in there. Today, what we have designed are gigawatt-hour factories. Gigafactories, Elon Musk coined the term, and he was right. It's like we need to scale it up. It's been scaled up today, but 75% of the cost of the materials that go into those gigafactories that we charge at, and Rodrigo, I love your constellation, 720 kilowatt. We want megawatt charging. We want to move things, and we can throw as much power to batteries that can accept that. But we must build the chemistries, and we can build them everywhere. We want to build them in Qatar. We want to build them in the US. Right now, it's built in China. And that's the fact. Simple.
I think take some questions, if you don't mind, Adeel, and everybody in the panel.
Yes, please. So I just want to remind all the speakers that we have 15 minutes left. I was told in the chat. And also, I have some questions that I want to ask There's a comment from Hania Rizvi asking, interesting point, Abdellah, but many green energy environmentally friendly movements begin with government incentives and subsidies to create the push before they
Agreed.
move into a filtering business. Abdellah,
That's
you're a
agreed.
trouble.
No, that's agreed. That's agreed. We want to prime the pump. My point initially, when I said we need a business behind it, is we want the governments to develop the regulations that push us forward, but we want businesses to be able, and someone wrote, is it profiteering? No, it's not. If there's no business, you can't drive forward.
Okay.
And that's it.
Another question is for to all four of you. What are the biggest misconceptions about electric vehicles that should be debunked to educate and encourage the masses to trust electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles? Yeah. Anyone can reply because
I can address that. I can address that. I love electric vehicles. They're more powerful, they're faster, they're cool. But look, yes, without EV charging, without enough infrastructure, without enough distribution of energy, well, I don't have to plan with an ICE vehicle. I can hop in a car, but it's not about the car. The biggest misconception is about all the infrastructure, the distribution, everything that we do around it. I can hop in my gasoline car today. I can go to the south of Morocco, and it's more than 1,000 miles.
I have another input here.
An electric car, I cannot do it today.
Thank you.
One point worth mentioning here, consumers or customers generally would look at the look, the design, the cars, how lovely, how beautiful it is from the outside, the accessories inside as well. I think many of the electric vehicles now have got that advantage over traditional vehicles. Look at the Chinese car; they're so beautiful. You couldn't resist whether it's electric or
It's true.
combustion engine. So the electric ones came in the market lately. Are so beautiful, so nice, to be honest, beyond resistance, to be honest. Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to BYD, a Chinese company. We all look, we grew up with cars, and the bigger the number on the car, this is a marketing thing that I want to give a shout out to BYD. Look, I have a 550, I have a 6.3, I have an 850. The bigger the number, the more powerful the car. We're humans, we love that. BYD developed a marketing ploy where they put the 0 to 60 miles an hour on their vehicles. I love that. It's like the smaller the number, the faster it is.
Yeah, I want to put an input, very, very quick point of view about think about total cost of ownership of a car. When you talk about that point of going to a gas station, fuel it and go, when you put the number in the other point of view and say, I will sell you a car that will let you save money better than the car you have right now, it's another point of view. And if I tell you that you're trying to buy a car because you're going to use it only 5% on that condition and the other 95 in the normal condition when people really drive, you will probably don't need to keep thinking about what type of car I will buy. But that conversation, nobody is putting on the table. But I know that it's a good point of view, because when you saw taxi drivers, when you talk about taxi drivers in my country, I'm not from Spain, I'm from South America, I live in Chile, and when the taxi drivers drive that car, everyone wants to drive that car because it's a good car. If a taxi driver drive the car, it's the better car to drive because don't fail it. It's a good way of driving. People are comfortable because the guy is sitting 24 hours in the steering wheel. So when you're looking about total cost of ownership of a car, if companies start putting numbers on the table and monetize the numbers, people will start buying more cars because that's the way of the majorities are looking. Where are they buying that? It's a sensation, but I know I buy a car because it's beautiful. I do it. It's true. But if I start putting numbers and said, okay, this car that is gasoline, diesel, and EV, because right now you can find 3 cars in the same model in 3 engine configuration, and I said this one has all these good things, and also these other things that are not taxation and stuff like that are about maintenance, consumption. You can charge in your house with your solar panels. You put all the numbers, and in 8 years, 5 years, you will pay that amount of money you paid more today, and after that, you will start like winning or spending less money of driving a car. That number,
Rodrigo,
people are not putting in the table.
You nailed a very good point on the head. It's infrastructure, installation cost. Because we need it charging everywhere, we need to bore, trench, installation costs. The EV charging installations, capital expenses that are put on the ground to do exactly what you mentioned. How do we do that? And then the cost, right? We're asking your Uber driver, your shared command, your taxi drivers, hey, I want to drive an electric car. I only drive 300 kilometers every day. I move people around, and it's with renewable energy that goes in there. But the distribution, this is where we're talking about charging. So it's actually a really valid point. And we need the help of the government, but we need to figure out the strategy where it pays for itself eventually. If we don't have that,
I believe we got a few questions to answer from the audience. Go ahead, Adeel, please.
Yeah, so Abdellah, I just want to cut it short. I want to take some, just my last question to Fizza was adopting EVs for the GCC hot climate. Then we change it. Then we go to another question. And then I have a really quick questions from the audience. So yes, Fizza, what's your take on the question that I asked?
So I'm not an expert in vehicles, but I have quite a bit of knowledge on EV charging and cooling. We saw that as an issue in the UK, as well as definitely in Saudi Arabia, with how high temperatures are going past 50 degrees. But there are plenty of chargers that come equipped with air conditioning, with ventilation grills, with cooling fans. And then there's also canopies on forecourts as well that allow chargers to still operate at an optimal functionality. Liquid cooling in cables as well really allows chargers to still operate alongside. There are temperature monitoring capabilities where you can set a certain threshold where the charger can just go offline itself, and it would switch off from an app or from the back end and alert the CPO if there are issues where temperature is either too low or too high. And then testing. So I've seen even like Alpatronic, they've put their chargers into either minus temperatures where they are in freezing zones or into much higher.
Like in Norway, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So testing and certifications around that as well is very important for companies or even governments to ensure that those certifications, those tests have been conducted before chargers are purchased and deployed. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay, so I will move to my last question, and then we're gonna be taking the questions from the audience. Finally, Fizza, Abdellah, Rodrigo, and Ahmad. Local production we're talking about here, opportunities and challenges in EV manufacturing is gaining attraction. What are the biggest opportunities for EV manufacturing in the GCC? And be honest, how long before we see a made in GCC electric supercar is just zooming past us? So this is my question to all of you. Whoever would like to answer this, please go ahead.
So on average, 25% of the cost of an EV is in the battery. So
yeah,
and materials, there is a whole value chain from the mining all the way to the cell components to the assembly. It's been optimized at the assembly place. What we want is we want to develop manufacturing at scale to fit the needs that we have. And it's about how much we move. All of us.
Yes, exactly.
Mr. Ahmad.
Yeah, so the question is it worthwhile to go for local production at this stage, at this point in time, to be honest, considering the magnitude or the volume of demand? So that's
it is Mr. Al-Ansari, this is the $1 trillion question. It's global.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it might be worthwhile considering, keep relying on China, say, for example, because it's a big market. I had my own experience with that when I invited the Chinese company to come to Doha and to market them, basically. And they said, how big is your market? I said, well, we're talking about probably 1,000 chargers to be installed over the next 10 years. And this guy said, we have orders of up to 80,000 chargers to be supplied to Europe. So why should we consider your market? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Fizza and Rodrigo, anything you want to add onto this?
Yeah, so I've seen there's a strong alignment to the Vision 2030 of sustainability, reducing the carbon emissions overall across the nation. And that strong demand has created a big market for EVs and the infrastructure that's associated with them. So it's a great time to get involved in the market, especially for women. I actually lead the company's operations team with just females. So it's if there are any opportunities that people are looking into, please, it'd be great to see a lot more women in the industry. In terms of seeing the first vehicle, as we are all aware,
I didn't know that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so alongside that, there is the company Sear as well. They will be launching their first vehicle next year, fingers crossed, and they are promising to be delivering SUVs as well as sedans. So yeah, very excited to be seeing those on the streets very soon.
Fizza, I just want to add one question because since you're talking, it's asked for you. Do you see many foreign EV manufacturers entering KSA market in the near future?
EV manufacturers?
Yeah.
Yes. So there are a number of companies that are already in discussion. So with, for example, you see Al-Futtaim with BYD. We see Tesla. There's Lucid already here. Volvo. There are quite a few EV manufacturers that are already making the advancements to launching in Saudi Arabia, and hopefully making it a much stronger market where consumers have a range of options to choose from.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
Adeel, may I address one question that I think is really good from Veronica Talukod?
Yeah. So let me finish this question of the forum, and then I'm just straightforward going to all the questions. Abdellah,
for me, it's very, very fast. I believe that in this term of production, things in different places. In case we produce a product here in Spain, the market here is not big enough for our production, so we export a lot of things. I believe in terms of EV, it depends in the market of how are the condition of selling, because the production goes right next to the before the sale. So if you can have customers for that units in the market, I believe that it's possible. Everything is possible when you have a consumer that are willing to pay the price of the thing they are developing in a place. I believe 20, 30 years ago, people are willing to pay from made in Germany. And then 30 years ago, people are willing to pay made in Japan. Right now, people are willing to pay made in China. Probably tomorrow are willing to pay in any place if the condition and the price and the supply of a good product are able to match the price with the customer. So I believe that everything is possible if the laws are good, if the way of developing the business plan for the product is good. So for me, everything is possible. So that's my input. It's not a technical number. It's more like a vision of way business.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you. And now I would call it the end of the session. I'm going to take some Q&A from the audience. So there are a few quite very interesting questions I found from Fahad Al-Riyami. I was always curious about the concepts of roads with built-in charging rails. Interesting. So the vehicles are always charging as they drive. It would also mean that cars could have significantly smaller batteries, but I guess the infrastructure cost would be much higher. True. So Abdellah, to you.
That's a great question. It's completely right. The capital expense, we need to rebuild essentially all the roads with a grid in them. And yeah, we won't have a problem of batteries. The more cars move, the more they charge. but the cost of the capital expense is incredibly huge.
I think we already have the technology with concept of roads.
It's not a problem of technology. It exists. We can do it. We can do it today. We can do it simply. But we need to redo all the roads with cables in them. And here is the actually tricky point. We need to make cars that are all standardized around charging inductively versus conductive.
But in States and in UK, I think Fizza, you must have seen the wireless charging, right? It's a similar concept for wireless charging, or some like you charge while you drive. There are bus trials in Dubai also. They're working on the buses and cars now on the trials. But this is a different concept. He's talking about rails. I think if we can manage to do this, it's going to be a breakthrough, but a lot of investment. I think only the state can do these jobs. Okay. Anybody would like to
ask a question? How often do you charge your phone? Inductively versus conductively? You plug it every time, right?
Yeah. Okay. Another question is from Veronica.
Just a very quick input. Sorry. Remember that batteries, the cars are batteries with wheels. You know, for the future, batteries of the cars will help the grid. That's part of also good thing about electric vehicles. Remember that we have a lot of renewables that need to be in a battery to be able to be used. Sometimes the grid just a transportation way of moving the energy. Cars are batteries with wheels that will help the grid. So a good way to point that if you're pulling more cars in the road with batteries, you will helping the grid in the future to one time use your own energy of your own car, or maybe helping the grid, helping other houses. So it's another way of energize the market. So it's also good to have a lot of batteries for the renewables, for the clean energies. You know, it's a good thing.
100% right, Rodrigo. You are 100% right. Energy storage is part of the vision and strategy that we must adopt.
Okay, another question is from Veronica. Is there emerging battery research any of the speakers are excited about from elsewhere in the field? Or is the current focus only on refining and improving the existing solid-state battery technology? I think, Abdellah, this is for you. There are a lot of fans hidden inside, yeah?
This is a great question, Veronica. Really, it's a really great question. So everyone asks, between investors, government, and everyone wants to know what's the winning technology. Is it solid state? Solid state exists, and by the way, all of the technologies have existed, have been proven in the lab. The $1 trillion question is, how do we scale it? What exists today in terms of manufacturing capabilities that we can, at the 1,000 gigawatt hours of energy storage that we need, how can we fit in something else? So today it's NMC with graphite, it's LFP with graphite. LFP is taking over. Why? Because it's getting better, it's cheaper, and it doesn't depend on a supply chain. And there you go. That's the answer. Is it solid state? Yeah. Is it, AquaLith, we have developed a 100% silicon anode.
Another question is a post by Aditya Pathak. We often link electrification and autonomy together. Given the slowdown in electrification that we have seen this year, do you see the future of autonomous vehicles to be more geared towards ICE as well?
No.
Okay.
May I answer that question, if you don't mind?
Yes, please.
I've been working in my field, the construction industry, for many years, and we are basically looking into having some of the equipment we're using fully autonomous. Primarily from the health and safety point of view, by protecting operators, especially when they work in a very hazardous environment, especially when it comes to demolition works, for instance, where there are always fears of collapse It just happened in the past that during some excavation works, side walls have collapsed on some operators, resulting in fatality, basically. All right. So our intention now is to come up with some certain solutions that where some equipment, which are basically electrically charged, to operate autonomously. All right, where they can be programmed in certain ways, they can perform and function totally independently and autonomously, while they are monitored by aerial kind of view through drones. So this is something that I'm looking at and studying, and how we can do that with some research institutes. Okay, so the autonomous operation, at least at my field, is very highly considered, and we're spending time and money on doing some research work on that to achieve that, at least from the, as I said earlier, from the point of health and safety issues. And I can see this is obviously replicating now at widely replicated at the traditional electric vehicles on the road. Basically, I don't know whether my colleagues here agree with me or not.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to add any point before we just go to the final thoughts? No? Okay. Well, folks, we have reached to the end of our charge up session. A big thank you to all of you and my panelists for keeping the conversation as fast. Now, before we wrap up, I would like to each one of you to share our final thought. What's the one thing that we need to focus on to drive EV adoption even faster? What if it's technology, policy, or just convincing people? So one by one, just a small sentence.
Sure, I'll go first. I believe the biggest way to encourage people, because I believe the incentive and the initiatives and the encouragement is already there. I think it's more so the education of EVs, the education of the charging infrastructure, the education and the confidence to be built in drivers across at least Saudi Arabia and the Gulf, for people to really feel the energy and hopefully make the transition as quickly as possible. So I believe education is the largest factor, in my opinion.
I am with you on that. I second you on that. Yes, please. Anyone else?
Abdellah.
I agree with Fizza. We need to convince people. Culture change, we're moving from gasoline to electricity. We need to help. The confidence that's given by the government shows the way. And then we have to really think smartly about how we map it to a self-sustaining energy plus transport economy. Sustainable energy plus transport economy. And that is absolutely going to drive, I don't want to say gold, but I'll say it.
Okay, Rodrigo, last words, and then Mr. Ahmad, please.
In a point of view, as a company that develop infrastructure of DC chargers that are very important for this transition, for us it's very important to be ahead, to listen to the market, to work side by side with CPOs, our main customers right now, because they are pushing the market in a way probably no one believes. So we're developing chargers in the necessity of the market. And I'll be very fast. Abdellah talked about the 720 kilowatt that was developed for the market. So we're in that point right now. We have to be fast and be open to listen to the inputs of the market. We work in a side with these customers, and probably that will be our key strategy for the next 3 or 4 years. So open to that, open to inputs, and happy to be part of the transition.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo and Mr. Ahmad.
In addition to what my colleagues have just mentioned, it's primarily the political will and the associated frameworks, whether it's legal framework, legislations, health and safety, you name it. These are have all to be amalgamated into one pot to, you know, to promote really the you know, the use of the EVs.
So thank you so much to all of you, and thank you again for joining us today. I hope you're leaving with a fully charged mind and maybe even a little more excited about EVs. Until next time, keep driving the change, and who knows, your future self and the planet will thank you. So thank you so much to my panelists, to my audience, to my listeners, and ma salama. Assalamu
Thank you
alaikum.
very much. Thank you, and see you next time.
Alaikum salam.
Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you.